Wilczynski. I'm an artist and welcome to my studio here in London. Come on up.
Hi, so I've been welcomed into the studio and we're going to have a quick look around and real exclusive interview to talk about inspiration and art, which is one of my favourite things, as you all know, so let's start talking.
Yeah, this is my latest piece I'm working on at the moment. I tend to paint large-scale, dreamlike, fleshy landscapes where appearances diffuse into one another. And this whole current body of work is called Throws, because for me, Throws encapsulates that space just before something ends, and I'm always interested in the in-between state of things. So this is the latest piece I'm working on right now, hopefully working towards my solo show at the end of the year, which is very exciting. So generally, what I paint is what I think, and how I paint is how I feel. So I use the composition to explore ideas I have, maybe philosophical themes, things I'm reading at the time, and I use colour and gesture to put emotion into the work. But generally, I'm always drawn to suggestive dichotomies in human nature. And this whole body of work really began a few years ago when I was living and studying in Paris at the Beaux-Arts Academy. And while I was there, I thought, right, I'll brush up on some French philosopher's work. So I picked up Derrida's Truth in Painting and became absolutely obsessed with Derrida's hymen. Not his actual hymen, because that would be a bit weird, a bit creepy, but his metaphor of the hymen, which by my interpretation acted as a membrane in between appearances. So as my painting developed and I pushed and pulled apart a few ideas, appearances began to diffuse through this membrane, and I equated that to almost an internal polarity we have within ourselves in the human condition, how we can be both man and beast, and it's just a matter of diffusion in a way.
So behind you, I've just noticed this piece as well. And is this a finished piece or is this work still under production?
It's still going strong. I still need to work at it. I began this painting when I moved back from Berlin, because I was just living there very recently, and I wasn't really sure what to paint, what to do, so I just kind of exploded loads of colour on canvas. But for me, colour has always been something I've worked with quite intuitively, and it's really, really important to me. I mean, I'm completely fascinated by it, and growing up I was always obsessed with colour. And what I find the most crazy, fascinating thing about it is the fact that colour doesn't exist, at least not in the physical world. It's something our brains completely construct, and I think that's such a beautiful idea. I like to manipulate colour theory and play across warm colours with cold colours to evoke movement in space. Rothko is one of my favourite all-time artists, and that's something I learnt from studying his paintings, because warm colours tend to advance and cold colours recede. So by almost, with this piece in particular, glazing each colour successively over one another, like here and there, you can kind of create that bite between the two colours and evoke a movement almost like a vibration or oscillation forwards and backwards in space.
What kind of books and films interest you, and do they inspire you within your work? You've mentioned some books too already.
Yes, no, definitely. One of my favourite books, which completely changed the way I think about hands in particular, is by a dear friend of mine, Raymond Tallis. He wrote a book called The Hand, a Philosophical Inquiry, where he literally described the hand as a cognitive organ, which completely blew my mind, because to think that this is not just a tool, it's an organ which we can use to evoke feelings, emotions. Hands are, to me, like portraits, and that's why I include them in my work. So these are two paintings I did actually in my final year at St. Martin's, and again they were just exploring that idea of appearances diffusing into one another, and in human nature, beginning with portraiture in this case. And the way I painted it was using techniques I learned when I was studying in Paris, because that was the first time I really got to grips with the alchemy of the craft. So I learned how to make my own paints and glazes, and here I would layer upon layer sticky translucent glazes so that the pigments would react with one another, and when light would go in it would reflect certain harmonious combinations. So that was really the premise behind this piece.
What was your first moment where you thought, I want to be an artist? Was it looking at somebody else's work? Was it drawing as a child? What inspired you?
Growing up, I was always artistic. I was drawing away. My parents would always send me to art classes at the weekend, I think just to get rid of me and get me out of the house so that they can have some time to themselves. But yeah, at school I always seemed to excel in art, and I would win the art prize every year, and I even got a scholarship. So for me, it's always been a part of my life. I kind of think visually rather than in terms of words and things like that. It's always been how I've learned to engage with the world and express myself growing up. But specifically, I remember when I was about 6 years old, and we were having our family portrait painted by a family friend of ours. And I was going up to her house and I was saying to my mum, oh, I'm going to be an artist when I'm older. So specifically when I was 6, that was when I decided to go for that career choice. Mum wanted me to be a dentist. That didn't really pan out too well because I failed my chemistry A level miserably. But hopefully it's working out all right now, so.
I'm just mesmerised by looking at all this work around me, and also I've noticed you're a bit of a collector of things as well around your studio.
No, I think I'm more of a hoarder, that's the word. I've got all sorts of crazy bits and bobs. My dad always brings me like this crazy little cat sculpture he bought me from China.
Well, I know you just noticed now, nipple tassels.
Oh yeah, well, you've got to keep things spicy, don't you?
Just in case in the studio, you know.
You never know.
Do paint just like sometimes.
You know, when the moment takes me, I've got to keep inspired.
Yeah, definitely. And I noticed when I'm
Can't
actually...
believe you found that, that's so funny.
And also, I just noticed, talk about quirkiness, I always normally wear skulls or something, and today, one day I'm not wearing one. I've just noticed your earring.
I made this earring when I was living in Berlin. There was like a really cool, quirky little bead shop, and I designed it and made it myself. So.
That is fantastic, and looking at your outfit actually is fantastic as well. That's so casual, underdressed.
Fabulous.